Well, it's that time of the year where I talk about nothing because I did nothing last week. And, well, sometimes you just gotta do that. Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the weekly Navel-Gazing. We talk about all the books I read last week and all the books I plan to read this week and all the videos and all the other stuff that happened or didn't happen. And it kind of devolves into rambling. So let's start with the books, and this should go very quickly. Because I didn't actually read that much. I did reread High Ex-Bastards by Quinn Slobodian again, and then nothing, because I was at a heavy metal festival from Tuesday 6 a.m. until yesterday in the late evenings, so my reading was very, very limited, because it's hard to do that at a festival, and that's what happened. So what am I going to read this week? Well, I am going to read Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. It came out last week, but I didn't get to it. It's already on my phone. It is basically the thing that will happen very, very soon, possibly today. It's not that long of a book, so it might just be done with it by tomorrow morning. Who knows? So that is the book that I'm definitely going to read. And then I guess we'll see what is going to happen. Whether I'm going to read some more fiction, if I have like an idea, or whether I just focus on doing like rereadings and stuff to get like videos out and, get that one thing done about artificial intelligence. That's sort of where I'm at right now. So if you have suggestions for books, then by all means, let me know in the comments. And yeah, videos, right? Well, I forgot. I also did read Rakesfall by Vajira Chandrasekhara last week. That's a book I read on Monday last week, and it is certainly something. It's really, really good. It's also really, really hard to read. I highly recommend you do it. I don't know if I will make a video about it because I'm hard to think, and I don't necessarily feel qualified to do so. So we'll have to see whether I understand some more about it in the next couple of days. But yeah, videos. Well, I promised do like videos, and I did in fact record a video, and then I waited for the thumbnail, and while I was waiting, I was coming up with more and more thoughts of like what else I should put actually in that video, so I decided to re-record it, which didn't happen because I came back too late yesterday to actually record it again, so that is something. A video on the supposed male reading crises, or whatever else is going on there with there are no more books being published for men, all of that stuff. The video will be up very soon, and we have a very, very interesting thumbnail for that. So you can look forward to that certainly this week. So that's why it didn't come out last week, mostly because of me being insecure about the content. So what about videos this week? Well, as I just said, that video will come out definitely for sure. I will probably make a video about Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. I made videos both for Camp Damascus and Bury Your Gaze, so it feels like there will be one for Lucky Day as well. So that is definitely something that's going to happen this week. Possibly also the artificial intelligence video. My goal is to get back to that and actually get it finished at some point, because, that stuff's difficult to keep pushing and pushing and pushing into the future. And that's video-wise where I'm at. Maybe something else will come up and I'll feel confident to talk about something else. Who knows? It may just happen. And yeah, yesterday I jumped on Britain's stream again, so that was fun. So at least some of you got to see my ugly face yesterday already. So yeah, that's videos at the moment. You can probably tell that I'm still somewhat recovering from my ordeal at Summer Breeze Open Air. My voice is still somewhat broken as well, so well, we'll see how things are going. One thing I was like, when I came back yesterday evening, I saw that Overly Average Ben has made a video on the male reading crisis fallacy. I haven't watched it yet, but it kind of hit me for a moment where I'm like, well, why should I still publish my video on the same subject, roughly the same subject, right? And then I was like somewhat mad at myself for not just like publishing the one that I had recorded already. And then I realized that, no matter what Ben is saying, and I don't even know, that doesn't matter. I can't also say something about it. These are not, we're not doing research here in like an academic sense where like publishing the same result as someone else is not something you do. But we are, having a conversation. We are having a discourse about certain aspects of, life around books and so forth. And That doesn't make my opinion more or less valuable than anyone else's opinion in the beginning. So I should not just like step back and not do something simply because someone else has made a video on the same subject right now already. So that is something, where that whole idea that I talked about recently was like being a bit of a, well, I'm very much not a perfectionist, but being insecure about the quality of a video can lead to this feeling that like if I don't actually publish it now, other people will publish first and they will sort of get like all the accolades for bringing something up when I'm like, yeah, but I've been working on this forever and ever and ever. And sort of understanding how these things work or how to relate to publishing videos on YouTube is there's certainly something I keep thinking about from time to time, and depending on how I feel and how exhausted or tired or whatever I am, sometimes these things will catch up to me and then I'll feel somewhat angry or frustrated with myself. And well, obviously I was very exhausted yesterday because, spending like 5 days at a heavy metal festival with, very little sleep and bands playing from like basically noon until like 3 a.m. in the morning, and me being someone who really, really wanted to watch a lot of bands and stuff like that, it does lead to very little sleep and makes it somewhat harder to focus on anything else. On the one hand, I think that's really good because it is that kind of moment where you can just basically step away, and I'm there with like a group of friends, and that is really, really cool. And I can step away from, reading the news, getting frustrated with the world, looking at, what people say about books on YouTube and getting really mad at those people because they obviously have the wrong opinions. I'm being the only person who obviously has the right opinion here, right? But, so stepping away from this for like a week basically is really, really helpful, and I appreciate that. But on the other hand, coming back feels so overwhelming because suddenly you have all this stuff that you need to go through. It's like, holy shit, what happened while I was away? Luckily, this time around, general world news were not as bad as last time I went to a festival, and when I came back, Iran and Israel were actually shooting at each other, and I was, holy shit, I missed that. And that was, so this time around it was just, book discourse and things like that. But those obviously stuff I kind of sometimes feel like I should pay attention to because it is, something that, for better or worse, my channel is somewhat tied to, right? So I feel like I should know what's going on. So that's certainly something that happens when, I don't necessarily check my phone a lot. And this time around, I also had like lots of technical issues with my phone because I dropped it and then like the SIM card fell, got dislodged, and then, you're on a campground. You need to find something to open that slide so you can refit the thing. And like, what I realize is like how much I'm relying on my phone. And I mean, we all talk about like how we're using our phones too much, and that is certainly true. Don't get me wrong, like we are spending way too much time on the internet, at least some of us. But one of the things I also noticed is like how important in some ways and how helpful in some ways a smartphone is for someone like me with a disability. Like as a blind person, there is technology there are things I can do now that I couldn't do before like the arrival of such technology, before having like basically connection to the entire world and the internet constantly with me. I can do things on my own that I would not have been able to do before, and having that taken away by your phone dying basically, or phone being not as useful because you can't actually access stuff, that can feel really scary for a moment because suddenly you're like, holy shit, I need to get this fixed. So even if it's just for me, in case, I go back and I have to, take trains and buses, and suddenly I can't check like arrival times and stuff on my phone anymore. That is really scary. Having something like that taken away for a second kind of shows us, or shows me at least, how natural sort of like that kind of usage became over the last couple of years. How often we just don't think about these things, how natural they are. And stepping back and thinking about like they are not necessarily natural in that regard, right? Like they are somewhat marvels of technology. They are also technology that is run by other by corporations that have like very different interests from our own in as their priorities, and how that impacts sort of like the world we interact with, right? Because this I think is important. There are theories in philosophy, right? Like when you talk about extended mind theory, when you look at like how certain technologies, it doesn't have to be a smartphone or whatever, it can be basically just a notebook where you write down phone numbers or whatever, as something that you always carry with you and you have always access to. And at some point things become so natural that they feel like an extension of our like being, of our physical and mental being, right? Checking the time or checking train connections or whatever does not feel like an act that requires outside things anymore, because it's just like it's at our fingertips. And by making these things feel so natural, feel as part of ourselves, the effects of business decisions of all stripes changing basically parts of ourselves, I think, is something that is really, really important that we think about, especially with, looking at how big tech is currently going in all kinds of really troubling directions, both with, the way that like our data is used, but also like the way that our perception is shaped by, having more and more generative artificial intelligence being used in all kinds of things, having people actively putting their thumbs on literally the scales in this case, like the weights in between, in those neural network models to make them, adhere to their own political wishes in one way or another. And that is, something that happened, obviously with Grok on XAI, or whatever you want to call it, like with Elon Musk. But it's also with the supposed AI bias in Meta's artificial intelligence systems. And none of these systems that are always going into our technology in one way or another are, fundamentally neutral. But by virtue of becoming so naturalized in our experience of ourselves, it's very easy to not see those kind of things. And that's certainly something I think about a lot. And sometimes, events like this last week and, drive that stuff home. As an additional bonus, once I got my phone fixed, shortly after that, I lost my phone charger. And what with stores being closed on Sundays, I basically lost access to my phone in a very different way again. So that is another story. But I feel like our reliance on technology, whether it is for actively doing stuff like, recording videos, uploading videos, doing those kind of things, or whether it is just general interaction with the world, is something that is worth thinking about. And it's certainly something that is becoming more and more prevalent, like in other ways as well, with like a large festival like Summer Breeze opening with like 50,000 people. There were a lot of people running around with like selfie sticks, like filming themselves talking into the camera, potentially for TikTok, YouTube, whatever, right? So that is also something that has like shifted our behavior in public in a lot of ways. I found interesting. Obviously, I haven't done like any vlogging. I don't think I'm particularly, would be particularly good at that. But I would be lying if I weren't saying that, if I were saying that, like, I've never thought about, like, maybe I should actually sort of, like, record bits and pieces of video of me going to a festival, because maybe it's just, like, also would be interesting to some of you to see how me with my different, with my disability and all the other stuff, how me managing that kind of event, how that actually works, maybe that would be of interest. But then I guess there is a level of insecurity that I have in that regard, where I'm like, I feel like really, really awkward running around in front of other people talking to a camera. I don't know if I want to do that. Especially like, filming myself or whatever. I don't know. It's weird, is what I'd say. So yeah, just like some random thoughts that I have from like last week. The videos will definitely still come. The one on like dudes not reading enough or whatever, I think there is more to be said there, and it will come. Also, I went to like a lot of hard work to actually getting some of the stuff for the thumbnail figured out, so that work should not be for nothing, right? I'll try to get the artificial intelligence video fully like figured out this week. It will take some hard work though, because it's a longer one, and it does have all kinds of current rapid development kind of stuff going into it in a lot of ways, and I want to get it right, is I guess the usual problem. And I think I mostly settle on like I'd rather do it late and right than be like the first one bringing up a point or whatever. I don't think with like a channel this small or whatever, that does really matter in any meaningful way. So I guess it's better for me to go down this direction. So yeah, that's what happened last week. I I hope you had fun. I hope you didn't burn up the way we did at that festival, where it was like in the high 90s in freedom units and like the mid 30s in proper metric, temperatures and stuff like Celsius. But yeah, I hope you read some good books. I hope you had fun with something. And thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and commenting, which I'm sure you all do. Try to join the Patreon if you feel like it. I'm certainly broke. And my phone is not going to get any better anytime soon. No, seriously. Do whatever you want. Most importantly, try to become or just try to stay good people. And I'll see you in the next one. And until then, thanks and cheers.